A majestic alien warrior woman standing on a glowing stone platform surrounded by alien runes, her tail erupting into blue flame, while lightning cracks behind her. A human man in chains stares up at her in disbelief. Massive alien crowd recoiling in shock. Atmospheric sci-fi, intense shadows, holy ritual energy. The joke hit like a bomb. Gasps rippled through the alien crowd. Some recoiled. Others turned away, as if what he'd said was blasphemy. Ishitari froze. Her knees trembled, buckled, as if hit by a force only she could feel. Then flame, brilliant blue fire, surged down her tail. From base to tip, it ignited like a fuse, glowing, mystical, beautiful, and terrifying. The crowd fell silent. So silent, Rain could hear the crackle of the flame. Like ancient magic waking from slumber. She turned to him, slowly, eyes locked. "You called," she said, voice soft but deadly clear. "Now I must answer." Rain blinked. "I what?" But it was too late. The ancient law had been invoked. A joke had become an oath. Dawn had barely touched the alien sky when they left. Rain's chains were gone, but not the fear. He stumbled across the rocky terrain, wrists still raw from captivity. Ishitari, blue-skinned warrior, flame-touched keeper, walked beside him, silent, steady, unreadable. She didn't speak, didn't glance at him, just moved through the wilderness with fluid precision, her glowing tail flickering like a torch in the shadows. Rain tried. "Do you have a name? Or should I just call you Blue?" No response. "I'm Rain. Technician. Earthborn. Terrible at rituals, apparently." Nothing. Only the wind answered, and the soft chime of the metal rings on her tail. Finally, he muttered, "You're not much for conversation." Without looking back, she raised a single hand, sharp, sudden. "Stop." Rain froze. Her eyes scanned the horizon. He followed her gaze, but saw only barren stone. She tilted her head, adjusted their path. That was the pattern. She sensed danger before he saw it. She walked ahead, placing herself between him and the unknown. Still, the flame burned. The eerie blue fire curled along her tail, never fading. Unnatural, alive. That night, they made camp in a narrow canyon beneath twin moons. Rain lit a small heater from his emergency pack. Ishitari stayed apart, eyes always watching. He finally asked, voice softer this time, "It was just a joke. I didn't mean anything by it." For the first time since they'd left the trial, she turned to look at him. The fire on her tail glowed brighter, casting moving shadows across her face. "In your world," she said slowly, "it was a joke. In mine, it was an oath." Rain blinked. "A what?" She stared at the flames. "You bound me," she said. "Now I must protect you. Until the fifth sunset, or until the flame dies. What happens if it doesn't die?" Her eyes locked with his. "Cold. Final. Then your bloodline becomes mine to protect. 4 generations." He swallowed. "You're joking." "I do not joke." A long silence stretched between them. The fire hissed quietly in the background. "Okay," Rain muttered, sitting down. "So I guess I'm the idiot who triggered alien marriage." She didn't laugh, but something flickered in her expression. Not anger. Not yet. Just something like acceptance. The day was still young when Ishitari stopped walking. Her hand flew up. "Move behind me," she whispered. Rain's heart quickened. "What is it?" Her voice dropped low. "Focused. Flame testers." "Wait, what?" "They come to test the bond." She drew her blade, sleek, curved, glowing faintly with the same energy that danced along her tail. Rain looked around, seeing nothing but wind-sculpted rock and endless terrain. "How do they test it?" he asked, already dreading the answer. "They try to kill the called," she said flatly. Rain blanched. "You mean me?" "Yes." A moment later, they appeared, 4 figures stepping out from behind stone ridges, each different in build and scars, but all glowing with faint blue markings. Warriors. Predators. One tall and thin, his body marked with ritual slashes. Another moved with the grace of a panther, eyes locked on Rain. They spoke at her tongue, lyrical, flowing, filled with weight. Ishitari replied in kind, body shifting into a defensive stance. tense, focused. What are they saying? Rain whispered. They offer me mercy, she said without looking at him. If I leave you now, they'll end you quickly, and I'll be absolved. Rain's voice trembled. And your answer? Ishitari didn't speak. She launched forward. Her blade flashed. One attacker fell back, wounded. The others scattered, circling. A deadly dance began. Steel clashing against steel, tails flaring, footsteps fast and precise on ancient stone. Rain could barely follow. She moved like water, dodging, countering, lashing out with terrifying precision. But she was outnumbered. A blade sliced across her ribs, deep. Another attacker landed a crushing blow that staggered her. Rain stood frozen, helpless. But then, one of the warriors broke away and charged at him. He didn't think. He grabbed a rock and threw it, full force. It cracked against the alien's head, just enough to slow him. Ishitari leapt in, intercepting the blow that would have killed Rain. The battle raged. Rain fought how he could, throwing rocks, tripping attackers, creating openings. Each second he bought gave Ishitari the edge she needed. Then happened. Two attackers came at once, one from the left, the other from behind. Ishitari turned toward the first, striking fast, but the second came straight for Rain. The blade hit him across the chest, shallow, but real. He screamed, stumbling back. Ishitari heard him. She roared, a sound so primal and furious, it sent shockwaves through the air. Her form blurred, her movements turned brutal, raw, and unstoppable. One after another, the flame testers fell, until none were left standing. Silence returned. Dust settled. Rain dropped to his knees, blood dripping through his uniform. She knelt beside him, hands trembling. You bleed for me, she whispered, but my flame was for duty. Her eyes met his, filled with something human. Now it is for you. They reached the black ridge by dusk. Rain could barely stand, ribs aching from the last fight. His arm was still bandaged, chest tight with pain. But when he looked up and saw what waited below, his breath caught. An army, at least 20 mounted warriors, creatures like armored panthers, riders cloaked in dark robes, eyes glowing faintly blue. At their head stood a figure taller than the rest, his body covered in ancient scars, a charred spear across his back. Ishitari froze. Who is that? Rain asked, whispering. Vorkith, she said softly. My mentor, the one who named me Keeper. The army stopped at the ridge's base. One rider dismounted. Vorkith, he called out in their tongue, commanding, resonant. Ishitari answered. What's he saying? Rain asked. He gives me a choice, she said, her voice trembling. Cut the flame, or die with you. Rain stared at the flame, still curling around her tail. It's okay, he said quietly. Break it. Save yourself. She turned sharply. Be silent. You do not understand what it means to choose for the first time. Rain opened his mouth, but her gaze silenced him. Then she stepped forward and called out to Vorkith with words like thunder. The warrior's body tensed. He reached behind him and offered her a ceremonial blade, double-edged, glowing with old symbols. Rain didn't understand the words, but he knew this was a ritual. Final, ancient. What did you say to him? Rain asked. I will answer his challenge, she said, in the old way. As the army formed a ring around them, chanting began, a slow, rhythmic hum that made the stone itself vibrate. Ishitari took the blade, knelt, and raised it toward her tail. Rain's eyes widened. Wait, what are you doing? But she didn't stop. With one clean stroke, she severed her own tail just above the brightest point of flame. The blue fire flared, erupting like a starburst, then blinked out. Her scream echoed through the canyon. Raw, broken, beyond pain. She collapsed, blood pouring beneath her, dark, thick, sacred. The ring of warriors stood silent, watching, unmoving. Rain rushed forward, caught her before she hit the ground. She's dying, he screamed at the crowd. Help her. No one moved. No one spoke. They were letting her die, not from the wound, but from a choice. He looked at Vorkith, his expression unreadable. You were a teacher, Rain snarled. You raised her, and now you let her bleed for this. The warrior stepped forward, knelt, and laid his charred spear at Rain's feet. Then he spoke. In human language. She left the right, but not her strength. Behind him, the circle of warriors slowly bowed their heads. One by one, Rain lifted Ishitari into his arms. She was cold, weak, but breathing. He turned and walked. No one stopped him. Absolutely. Here's the final part of your story. The storm broke as they crossed into the gorge. Rain staggered forward, holding Ishitari's limp form. Blood from her severed tail mixed with rainwater, washing into the dirt. "Stay with me," he whispered. "Don't leave." He found a small cave, shelter from the storm. Laid her down, made a fire, bandaged the wound. She had chosen him, and her people had chosen silence. Hours passed. The rain slowed to a soft whisper. The cave glowed faintly, blue moss casting ghost light across stone walls. Then she opened her eyes. "You didn't leave," she said weakly. "Of course not." He gave her water, checked the wound again. She was pale but alive. "I never felt smaller," he said quietly, staring at the glowing moss. "I'm a joke, a mistake. I said something dumb, and it changed everything." Ishitari's eyes fixed on his. "You didn't disappear," she said. "You became a choice." He reached out, hesitated, then found her fingers with his own. She didn't pull away. Days passed. They reached an abandoned station, half buried in sand. Rain scavenged supplies, patched her wounds, and watched her learn how to stand again. Her balance was off, her body struggling without the tail that had once defined her. "I'm no longer part of them," she said one night, "and no longer bound to you." She looked lost. "Then who am I?" Rain knelt in front of her. "You're the first who chose not ritual, but a person. That's who you are now." She stared into him, then slowly, deliberately, placed her hand over his heart. "Then I will learn to balance again," she said. As someone new, one night, Rain returned to the human outpost, alone. He erased Ishitari from the records. Modified logs, deleted scans, rewrote her into a blank. When a security officer found him, she didn't stop him. "She must be something," she said, "to make a company man go native." Rain only replied, "She chose." He returned to her, and they vanished. A month later, a human rescue crew arrived at the abandoned station. It was empty, except for one mark burned into the floor. A symbol, two worlds intertwined. One flame. The report was filed as unexplained activity. But across the borderlands, stories began to spread. Whispers of an alien woman with no tail, walking beside a human man. A flame followed them, no longer bound by a body, but trailing behind like a ghost. Healers, warriors, ghosts. The legends grew. In some places, symbols began to appear. On walls, on stones, on sacred grounds. Each one echoed the original. The one who wasn't afraid of the tail became the one the flame wasn't afraid of. On a distant planet, a child stood watching the twin moons rise. He pointed excitedly into the distance. "Mom, I see them, the ones from the story." And behind them, a soft blue flame hovered like a memory. Not quite a tail, but still burning.